She sent the text to the wrong number. A Korean Mafia boss replied, "Don't move. I'm coming." Angela Grayson's fingers trembled over the cracked screen. Her right arm cradled against her ribs like something already dead. The bathroom tiles pressed ice into her spine, but she barely felt it. All she felt was the wrongness, the unnatural angle of her wrist, the wet heat of blood seeping through her cardigan sleeve where the glass had torn skin. Derek's fist hammered against the door. "Angela, baby, open up. Let me see it. Let me help you." Her husband, the man who'd slipped a 2-carat diamond on her finger 4 years ago in a riverside garden, the man who'd just grabbed her arm with both hands and twisted until something inside snapped like kindling. "I didn't mean to hurt you. You know that. You startled me." She knew better than to answer. Silence only fed his rage, but words fed it faster. Angela fumbled for her phone with her left hand, vision swimming. She needed her brother. Julian would come. Julian always came. The screen smeared red under her thumb as she scrolled through contacts. Everything looked the same through tears and terror names blurring into shapes, numbers into nonsense. She pressed what had to be Julian's name and typed with one shaking finger. "He crushed my arm. I think it's broken. He won't let me leave. 2453 Westfield Apartments, Unit 17, please." She hit send and prayed. The door shuddered. Derek's voice dropped to that silky register that always came before the worst of it. "Angela, I'm asking nicely. Don't make me ask again." Her phone buzzed. "Who is this?" Her heart fell through the floor. Wrong number. She'd texted a stranger while Derek was seconds away from kicking down the only barrier between her and whatever came next. "No. No. No. No." She typed again. Faster. Messier. "Wrong number, sorry. But please. Husband broke my arm. He's breaking down the door. I need help." 3 seconds of silence. Then, "Don't move. I'm coming. Confirm address." Angela's breath caught. She didn't know who this person was, didn't know if they were real or cruel or even in the same city, but they were all she had. 2453 Westfield Apartments, Unit 17. Please hurry. Please don't call police. Another buzz. "Stay hidden. 8 minutes. Hold on. 8 minutes. She'd be dead in 8 minutes." The lock was already splintering. "I'm counting to 3, Angela." The voice on the other side wasn't her husband's anymore. It was the voice he used when he stopped pretending. When the mask cracked and the thing underneath came out. 1. She pressed herself into the corner between the tub and the wall, trying to make her body smaller, trying to disappear into the grout. 2. Her phone screen dimmed. The last message sat there like a lifeline thrown from a passing ship. "Hold on." 2 words from a stranger who might not even come. 3. "Welcome to Ruthless Romance Tales. And honey, you just stepped into something you can't unsee. If you've been riding with me, you know we don't do safe here, we do dangerous, we do addictive, we do the kind of love that brands your soul and refuses to let go. And if you're new, buckle the hell up, because what you're about to witness is a collision so violent, so inevitable, it'll rewrite everything you thought you knew about romance. Hit that like button like your life depends on it. Subscribe because you're already hooked, and smash that notification bell, because missing what comes next would be a crime. Now let's watch how the ruthless Korean Mafia boss's life changed forever. The door exploded inward, splinters of cheap wood scattering across tile. Derek filled the doorframe 6'2", shoulders heaving, eyes flat and black like river stones. He wasn't looking at her like she was his wife. He was looking at her like she was a problem that needed solving. "Who were you texting?" He moved fast. Before Angela could pull the phone away, his hand closed around her shattered arm and yanked her upright. The pain was a living thing, white-hot, total, swallowing every thought except the scream that tore from her throat. Derek ripped the phone from her grip, scrolled through the messages. His face went rigid. "Who the hell is this? You calling someone? You think someone's coming for you? Wrong number," she gasped through the agony. "I was trying to text Julian." The slap came so hard her vision sparked. She tasted copper. "You think I'm stupid?" Derek grabbed a fistful of her hair and dragged her from the bathroom into the bedroom. "Nobody's coming, Angela. Nobody's going to save you. You're mine." She hit the mattress and bounced, her arm screaming. Derek paced the room, running his hands through his hair, muttering under his breath about how she made him do this, how she never learned, how everything would be fine if she just listened. "You need to understand something," he said, voice eerily calm now. He was unbuckling his belt. "You don't get to leave. You don't get to call for help. You don't—" Car doors slammed outside. Heavy, multiple. Derek froze. Angela's pulse hammered in her throat. 8 minutes. It hadn't even been 5. Footsteps. Not the shuffle of neighbors or the casual stroll of someone walking a dog. These were purposeful, climbing the exterior stairs to their second-floor apartment with the precision of soldiers moving toward an objective. Derek's hand went to the gun he kept in the nightstand. "Who did you call?" "I don't know," Angela whispered. And it was the truth. The footsteps stopped outside their door. Then the knocking started. 3 slow, deliberate strikes that didn't sound like a request. They sounded like a warning. The knocking stopped. For 3 heartbeats, the apartment held its breath. Then the front door didn't open, it simply ceased to exist. No splintering crash, no dramatic kick. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, removed from its hinges with surgical precision and set aside like it had never mattered at all. Derek's hand was already on the gun when the first man entered. He was silent as death, dressed in black tactical gear that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Then another, and another. They filled the doorway like shadows given form, but none of them moved toward the bedroom. They simply stood there, a wall of absolute stillness, waiting. Then he walked in. Lee Do-yoon didn't rush. He didn't need to. He moved through Angela's destroyed living room with the unhurried grace of a man who knew the world would wait for him. Charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, not a thread out of place despite the hour. His face was all sharp angles and cold beauty, the kind that made you forget to breathe until your lungs burned. But it was his eyes that made Angela's heart stutter. Obsidian, flat, empty of everything except a terrible, patient focus. He looked at Derek the way someone might look at a stain on expensive marble. "Get out of my house." Derek's voice cracked as he raised the gun, his other hand still fisted in Angela's hair, yanking her head back. "I'm a police officer. I know what you are." Do-yoon's voice was quiet, almost conversational, with the barest trace of an accent that made each word sound deliberate. He took another step into the bedroom. His men didn't follow. They didn't need to. Derek's gun hand shook. "I'll shoot. Do-yoon smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Angela had ever seen. A thin, cold line that held no humor, no warmth, nothing human at all. Just the promise of something inevitable. "You won't." He moved. Angela didn't see it happen. One moment Do-yoon was near the door, the next he was beside the bed. His hand closed around Derek's wrist. There was a sound, wet, organic, wrong, and Derek's scream split the air. The gun clattered to the floor. Derek's hand hung at an unnatural angle, the same grotesque wrongness Angela had seen in her own arm just minutes before. Poetic justice delivered without a word. Derek crumpled, clutching his shattered wrist, his face gone gray with shock and pain. Do-yoon released him like he was discarding something distasteful, then turned to Angela. For the first time since entering, his expression shifted. Not softening, nothing about him was soft, but the flat emptiness in his eyes gained dimension. Recognition. Assessment. Something else she couldn't name. "Can you stand?" His voice dropped lower, meant only for her. Angela tried. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. The adrenaline that had kept her conscious was draining away, leaving nothing but pain and exhaustion and the dreamlike unreality of a Korean man in a $10,000 suit, standing in her bedroom at midnight because she'd texted the wrong number. Do-yoon didn't wait for an answer. He shrugged out of his coat, cashmere, midnight gray, still warm from his body, and draped it over her shoulders. The scent hit her immediately. Cedar and tobacco, expensive cologne, and something darker underneath. Gunpowder, maybe, or blood. The coat swallowed her, heavy and luxurious and completely incongruous with the horror of the last hour. He bent down, and Angela's breath caught as he slid one arm beneath her knees, the other around her back, lifting her as though she weighed nothing at all. She should have been terrified. This stranger, this man who'd just broken her husband's bones with casual efficiency, was carrying her out of her own apartment. But the fear that should have been there was drowned by something else entirely. Relief, exhaustion, and underneath it, barely acknowledged, the feeling of being held by someone who wasn't hurting her. Do-yoon's face was inches from hers. She could see the faint scar bisecting his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tensed as he adjusted his grip to avoid her injured arm. His breath was steady, controlled, while hers came in shallow gasps. "You're mine now," he whispered, so quiet Derek couldn't hear over his own sobbing. Not a question. Not a comfort. A statement of fact delivered with the certainty of a man who'd never been told no in his life. Angela should have protested, should have demanded answers, should have done anything except let this stranger carry her past his silent army of men, past her destroyed front door, past the life she'd known, but she didn't, because the monster holding her felt safer than the man she'd married. And that terrified her most of all. Angela woke to sunlight that shouldn't exist, not the gray, filtered light of her apartment windows with their view of the neighboring building's brick wall. This was pure, unobstructed morning pouring through floor-to-ceiling glass that stretched impossibly high. She blinked against the brightness, her mind struggling to reconcile the last thing she remembered Do-yoon's arms. The backseat of a car that smelled like leather and danger with the palace she'd woken up in, because that's what it was. A palace suspended in the sky. The bed beneath her was a cloud of silk sheets the color of champagne. Her right arm rested on a pillow, encased in something that looked more like aerospace engineering than a medical brace, sleek black carbon fiber with subtle LED indicators pulsing a soft blue. No pain. Whatever they'd given her had reduced the agony to a distant throb. She sat up slowly, her body protesting in a dozen places that had nothing to do with her arm. The room was enormous, all clean lines and expensive minimalism, white walls, dark wood. And those windows, God, those windows offering the city like a gift laid at her feet. 40 floors up, maybe more. High enough that the streets below looked like distant rivers of light. High enough that jumping wouldn't be quick. The thought came unbidden, unwelcome. Angela pushed it away and stood, testing her legs. Her feet met heated marble, and she realized she was wearing silk pajamas she'd never seen before. Black, perfectly fitted. Someone had changed her clothes while she slept. The intimacy of that violation should have terrified her, but it was swallowed by a larger, more pressing question. Where the hell was she? She found a door, black lacquered wood with no visible handle, and pressed her palm against it. It slid open with a whisper, revealing a hallway that belonged in an architectural magazine. She moved through it, her bare feet silent, following the sound of, was that water? A fountain? The hallway opened into a living space that stole what was left of her breath. The penthouse stretched out like a temple to wealth and power. Everything was monochrome elegance, from the low-slung leather furniture to the abstract art that probably cost more than her entire life. But it was the view that held her captive, a 360-degree panorama of the city waking up beneath her. Beautiful, isn't it? Angela spun. A man stood near the entrance, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that marked him as one of Do-yoon's. His face was professionally blank, but his body blocked the only visible exit. I need to leave. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I'm afraid that's not possible, Miss Grayson. Miss Grayson. Not Mrs. The absence of Derek's last name felt like freedom and imprisonment braided together. You can't keep me here. She moved toward him anyway, testing. He didn't shift, didn't reach for a weapon. He simply existed as an immovable barrier, polite and absolute. You should sit down. It wasn't a suggestion. Mr. Lee will want to speak with you. I don't care what Mr. Lee wants. You care very much what I want. The voice came from behind her, and Angela's heart performed some complicated acrobatics that left her breathless. She turned to find Do-yoon emerging from a doorway she hadn't noticed, a glass of tea in his hand. He wore different clothes, charcoal slacks, a black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, exposing forearms corded with muscle and decorated with ink that disappeared beneath the fabric. He looked less like a businessman and more like what he actually was. Dangerous. Your arm. He gestured with the tea, those obsidian eyes tracking her with unnerving focus. The surgeon says you'll regain full mobility in 6 weeks. Earlier, if you're disciplined with physical therapy, you had no right. I had every right. He moved closer, and Angela hated that she didn't step back. You texted me for help. I helped. I texted the wrong number. Yes, that terrible smile again, barely there. Lucky for you. The guard had disappeared, she realized. When had that happened? Now it was just her and Do-yoon in this glass tower, the city sprawling below them like subjects before a throne. I want to go home. You don't have a home. Not anymore. He set the tea down on a side table, the movement precise, controlled. Derek isn't in jail, Angela. His brother, Detective Marcus Hayes, filed the incident as a domestic dispute with no charges. Derek walked out of the hospital 4 hours after I left him bleeding on your bedroom floor. The room tilted. That's not possible. It's not only possible, it's done. He's looking for you right now. He's filed a missing persons report. You're officially a kidnap victim, and he's the concerned husband leading the search. Angela's legs forgot how to hold her weight. She sank onto the nearest chair leather, butter soft, probably obscenely expensive, and tried to process what he was telling her. You're lying. I don't lie. I don't need to. Do-yoon moved to the window, his silhouette dark against all that light. Outside these walls, you are a dead woman. Derek will find you eventually. His badge gives him access to every camera, every database, every tool the city has to offer. And when he finds you, he will kill you. Not quickly, not cleanly. He turned back to face her, and the morning light made him look carved from shadow. In here, you are untouchable. You are protected. You are... He paused, something flickering in those dead eyes. Mine. I'm not anyone's. But the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Then choose. He spread his hands, the gesture almost magnanimous. Outside, you are prey. In here, you are a queen. Which do you prefer? Angela looked at him, this beautiful, terrifying stranger who'd broken into her life and rearranged all the pieces and felt the trap close around her with the soft, inexorable pressure of silk tightening into a noose. She'd escaped one monster by running straight into the arms of something infinitely more dangerous. And the most terrifying part? She wasn't sure she wanted to run anymore. 3 days passed in the glass tower, and Angela learned that luxury could be its own kind of prison. She'd tried the doors. All of them. They opened to reveal more beautiful rooms, a library with first editions, a gym with equipment she didn't know how to use, a kitchen stocked with food she was too anxious to eat, but the elevator required a fingerprint that wasn't hers. And the stairs led to a door with a lock that didn't respond to anything she tried. On the 4th morning, Do-yoon knocked. Actually knocked, like her opinion on his entrance mattered. Your arm needs cleaning. He stood in the doorway of the bedroom she'd claimed, holding a medical kit that looked military grade. The brace comes off for 30 minutes daily. Doctor's orders. I can do it myself. With one hand, he tilted his head, and something in that small gesture made her pulse kick. You're intelligent, Angela. Don't insult us both with pride. He was right, and she hated him for it. The bathroom was an exercise in excess marble everywhere. A tub that could fit 4 people. A shower with enough jets to simulate a monsoon. Do-yoon set the medical kit on the counter and turned on the water, testing the temperature with the kind of attention she'd seen him give everything. Precise, controlled, obsessive. Sit. He gestured to the bench inside the shower enclosure. Angela's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm not getting undressed. I know. He retrieved a waterproof covering from the kit. The brace stays dry. Everything else gets clean. You've been wearing the same clothes for 2 days. She had, because the alternative was accepting the wardrobe that had appeared in the closet designer labels, her exact size, chosen by someone who'd studied her body with uncomfortable precision. The steam built around them as she sat, still fully clothed in the silk pajamas. Do-yoon knelt beside the bench, close enough that she could see the ink disappearing under his rolled sleeves wasn't random. It was a story told in symbols she didn't understand. Dragons. Tigers. Something that looked like a family crest rendered in brutal black lines. He began with her left hand, using a soft cloth to wash away days of sweat and fear. His touch was clinical at first, efficient. But there was something hypnotic about watching those dangerous hands perform such a gentle task. Hands that had broken Derek's bones now cradling her fingers like they were made of glass. Why are you doing this? Her voice sounded strange in the steam-thick air. Because you can't. He moved to her wrist, her forearm, the movements methodical but not cold. Never cold. You have people who could. I don't trust anyone else with you. The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Angela watched water droplets slide down his forearms, following the paths of ink and muscle. His sleeves were soaked now, clinging to skin that shouldn't have fascinated her but did. Lean forward. She obeyed before her brain caught up with her body. He gathered her hair thick coils that she hadn't had the energy to maintain and pulled it over her shoulder with surprising gentleness. His fingers brushed the back of her neck, and Angela's breath caught. You're afraid of me. Not a question. Yes. Good. He continued washing, moving to her shoulders, her back, the cloth warm and careful over silk that was growing transparent with water. Fear keeps you smart, but you're also curious. That's dangerous. Curious about what? Why a man like me would care about a woman like you. Angela turned to face him, water streaming down her face, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. And why do you? Do-yoon paused, the cloth still in his hand, his face inches from hers. Up close, she could see the scar through his eyebrow wasn't the only one. There was another, faint, along his jaw. And his eyes, God. Those eyes weren't entirely black. There were flecks of bronze near the pupils, like embers in ash. I'll show you. He stood, offering his hand. Get dressed. Something comfortable. 20 minutes later, she followed him through corridors she hadn't explored, her damp hair leaving wet spots on the simple black dress she'd finally accepted from the closet. It fit like it was made for her. It probably was. Do-yoon stopped at a door that looked like all the others, but wasn't. When it opened, Angela's world tilted sideways. The room was soundproofed, she could tell from the specialized panels on the walls, and in the center, bathed in soft light, stood her cello. Not one like it. Hers, the instrument she'd saved for 3 years to buy, with the scratch on the neck from the first time Derek had knocked it over in a rage. How? Her voice failed. I went back. Do-yoon leaned against the doorframe, watching her with that unnerving focus. The night I took you. My men retrieved everything that mattered before Derek could destroy it. Angela moved toward the cello like a woman in a trance. Her fingers, the ones on her good hand, traced the familiar curves. The strings that needed tuning, the bow resting beside it. Why? Because 5 years ago, I saw you perform at the Sheridan Hall benefit concert. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. You played Elgar, the cello concerto in E minor, and for 4 minutes and 37 seconds, I forgot what I was. Angela turned to stare at him. You remember the piece? I remember everything about that night. He pushed off the doorframe, moving closer. You wore emerald green, your hair was up, and when you played, you closed your eyes like the music was the only thing in the world that mattered. Her breath caught. You're saying you've been what? Obsessed with me for 5 years? Obsessed is your word. He stopped just behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. I prefer devoted. That's insane. Yes. His hand came up, hovering near her shoulder but not quite touching. I've bought every recording you've made, attended every public performance, and when you stopped playing 2 years ago, I noticed. I looked into why. The air left Angela's lungs. Derek. Derek. The name sounded like a curse in his mouth. Who crushed your spirit long before he crushed your arm. So when your text came through when fate put you in my hands, I didn't hesitate. Angela turned to face him, and the truth crashed over her like a wave. This isn't a rescue. It's a collection, he finished, that terrible smile playing at his lips. You're the masterpiece I've been waiting to acquire, and now that I have you... His hand finally made contact, fingers tracing the line of her jaw with devastating gentleness. I'm never letting go. Angela couldn't sleep. The penthouse was too quiet at night, all that glass and marble swallowing sound until the silence itself became a presence. She'd tried, spent 2 hours staring at the ceiling of her gilded cage, replaying Do-yoon's words in the music room. Collection, masterpiece, never letting go. She should have been terrified. She was terrified, but underneath the fear lived something else. Something dark and magnetic that made her skin feel too tight, made her wonder what his hands would feel like without the gentleness, without the restraint. At 2 a.m, she gave up on sleep and wandered. The penthouse was different at night. The city lights below transformed the glass walls into mirrors, reflecting her ghost-like figure back at her brown skin, glowing amber in the dimness, her natural hair a dark halo around her face. The black silk nightgown she'd finally accepted hanging off her frame like shadow-made fabric. She moved through corridors she'd memorized by now, drawn by something she couldn't name. Maybe curiosity, maybe self-destruction, maybe they were the same thing. That's when she heard his voice. Low, controlled, speaking in Korean with the kind of authority that made her spine straighten even though the words meant nothing to her. It came from a room she'd assumed was locked an office at the far end of the east wing, behind a door that always remained closed. Tonight, it was cracked open. Just enough. Angela knew she should walk away, knew that whatever happened behind that door was none of her business, was dangerous to witness, was exactly the kind of knowledge that got people killed in movies. But her feet kept moving, drawn by the gravitational pull of a black hole, until she stood in the sliver of darkness beside the doorframe. Through the gap, she could see him. Do-yoon sat behind a massive desk of dark wood, his face lit by the cold glow of multiple monitors. He'd shed his usual armor, the suit jacket was gone, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal those tattooed forearms. But it wasn't his appearance that made Angela's blood run cold. It was his expression. Empty. Absolute. The face of a man who'd removed every trace of humanity and replaced it with pure, calculating purpose. On the screen in front of him, another man spoke older, Korean, his face tight with fear barely masked as respect. Do-yoon listened with the patience of a predator watching prey run out of places to hide. Then he spoke. Still Korean, But Angela didn't need translation. She understood tone. She understood finality. Do-yoon's hand moved across a tablet, his finger signing something with the casual efficiency of a man approving a lunch order. Except she knew God. She knew in her bones he wasn't ordering food. The man on the screen bowed. The call ended. Do-yoon pulled up another screen. Financial charts. Numbers flowing in columns that meant nothing to Angela but clearly meant everything to him. He made another gesture, moved funds with a swipe, and somewhere in the world, someone's life was being dismantled. Asset by asset. Account by account. A systematic destruction carried out with the cold precision of a surgeon. This was who he was. Not the man who'd washed her arm with gentle hands. Not the man who'd retrieved her cello and remembered her performance from 5 years ago. This was Lee Do-yoon, the king of an empire built on fear and blood, and she was standing in his palace watching him destroy people with less emotion than normal humans showed swatting flies. She must have made a sound, a gasp, a sharp intake of breath, something. Because he looked up. For one frozen moment, their eyes met across the darkness, and Angela watched something extraordinary happen. His face transformed. The emptiness evaporated, replaced by something warm and terrible and devastating. The monster disappeared, and in its place stood a man looking at her like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. He stood slowly, moving around the desk with that controlled grace that made her heart hammer for all the wrong reasons. Angela. Her name in his mouth was a prayer and a possession braided together. You should be sleeping. I couldn't. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. I know what you heard. He reached the doorway, and she should have stepped back, should have run, but she stayed rooted to the spot as he emerged from his office into the hallway. The man who'd just signed death warrants with the same hands, now reaching for her face. Are you afraid? Yes. Good. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and Angela hated how her body leaned into the touch. You should be. I'm not a good man, Angela. I've never pretended to be. Then what are you? Yours. The word hung between them, heavy and irrevocable. Every terrible thing I am, every sin I've committed, every life I've ended, it all belongs to you now, just as you belong to me. That's not... Her protest died as his other hand came up, cradling her face like she was something precious and breakable. You can't just claim people. I don't claim people. I claimed you. 5 years ago, watching you play with your eyes closed and your soul on fire. You just didn't know it yet. The confession should have sounded insane. It was insane. But standing there in the dark hallway with his hands on her face and his eyes burning into hers, Angela felt something inside her shift. Some fundamental understanding that she'd been running toward this moment since the night she'd sent that text. Maybe longer. The things I do, he continued, his voice dropping to something raw and honest. The decisions I make, they keep empires running. They keep you safe. They keep you here. With me, where you belong. I don't belong to anyone. Keep telling yourself that. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips, his scent cedar and tobacco and danger surrounding her completely. But we both know it's a lie. You felt it in the music room. You're feeling it now. This thing between us, it was inevitable the moment you walked onto that stage 5 years ago. Angela's hands came up, intending to push him away. Instead, they fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed at her to run. You're a monster. Yes. His forehead pressed against hers, and the intimacy of it stole her breath. But I'm your monster. And you, Angela Grayson, are my salvation and my damnation wrapped in brown skin and music. She kissed him, or he kissed her. Later, she wouldn't be able to say who moved first. The kiss ended because Angela's new phone, the one Do-yoon had given her, untraceable, encrypted, supposedly safe, vibrated against the nightstand in her room. She pulled away from him, breathless and shaking, her lips still burning from the press of his mouth. Do-yoon let her go, but his eyes tracked her like a predator watching prey decide whether to run. It's 3 a.m, she said, more to herself than him. Who would? The screen lit up, unknown number, and beneath it, a photo that made her blood turn to ice. Julian, her brother, bound to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. His face bruised, terror stark in his eyes. And standing behind him, just visible in the frame's edge, was Derek's unmistakable silhouette. The message came through a second later. Come alone or he dies. You have 2 hours. I'll send the address. Angela's world tilted. The phone slipped from her hand, but Do-yoon caught it before it hit the floor, his movements liquid fast. He studied the screen. his expression shifting back to that terrible emptiness she'd seen in his office. No. His voice was flat. Final. That's my brother. Angela lunged for the phone, but he held it out of reach with insulting ease. He has Julian. You have to do nothing. Do-yoon pocketed the phone. This is a trap. A obvious, desperate trap. I don't care. Her voice cracked, hysteria creeping in at the edges. That's my brother, Do-yoon, my family. The only family I have left. If Derek hurts him because of me, then Derek dies. Simple, certain. But you don't go anywhere. Angela tried to push past him. He caught her wrist, the good one, and held her in place with enough pressure to stop her but not enough to hurt. The restraint was somehow worse than force would have been. Let me go. No. He'll kill Julian. He won't. Do-yoon pulled her closer, his free hand coming up to grip her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. Because Derek needs leverage. The moment your brother dies, he loses his only card. He's not stupid enough to throw that away. You don't know that. You can't. I know men like him. I've killed men like him. The words were matter-of-fact, clinical. He wants you to panic, to run to him, to give him exactly what he wants, because you're terrified and emotional and not thinking clearly. Then what do I do? The question came out broken, desperate. Just let my brother sit there, tied up, waiting to die? No. Do-yoon released her chin but didn't let go of her wrist. You let me handle it. I have people. I don't want your people. Angela yanked against his grip, futile as fighting a steel cable. I want my brother safe. I want this to be over. She broke. Just shattered. 2 weeks of terror and pain and confusion and impossible desire came crashing down. And suddenly she was sobbing against Do-yoon's chest while he held her, his arms a cage and a sanctuary at once. I know, he murmured against her hair. I know. They stood like that for a long moment, her crying, him holding her until Angela's tears ran dry, and something harder took their place. She pulled back, wiping her face with her good hand. Teach me. Do-yoon's eyes narrowed. Teach you what? How to fight back? How to... She gestured helplessly. Whatever it is you do. I can't just be helpless. I can't just wait and hope. If Derek comes for me, I need to be ready. Something flickered across his face. Approval, maybe. Or satisfaction that she was finally seeing the world the way he did. Brutal, unforgiving, survival of the most ruthless. Now? Now. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Come with me. He led her to a room she hadn't seen before, smaller, lined with weapons displayed like art, blades of every size, some ceremonial, some clearly functional. Do-yoon selected one, a small knife with a black handle, deceptively simple. A blade is intimate, he said, turning back to her. More intimate than a gun. You have to be close. You have to be committed. There's no taking it back once you start. He moved behind her, and Angela's breath hitched as his body aligned with hers, his chest against her back, his arms coming around to guide her hands. The knife felt foreign in her palm, cold and purposeful. Your instinct will be to slash. His breath was warm against her neck, raising goose hairs down her spine. That's wrong. You thrust. Up and in. Here. His hand guided hers to his own ribs, showing her the vulnerable spots on his body with disturbing casualness. Or here. He moved her hand higher, to his throat. Quick. Decisive. No hesitation. I can't. You can. His other hand splayed across her stomach, holding her against him. Your husband broke your arm, terrorized you, and now he has your brother. Tell me you can't imagine putting a blade in him. Angela closed her eyes, and the truth was she could imagine it. God help her, she could. Good girl. The praise in his voice was dark, possessive. Feel that? That's power. That's survival. That's what it takes to exist in my world. He adjusted her grip, his fingers warm and calloused over hers. Again. Show me. She thrust forward, the movement clumsy but committed. He corrected her angle, his hands patient and sure, his body a solid presence behind hers. Again. She did it again. And again. Each repetition smoother, more natural, until the blade felt less like a foreign object and more like an extension of her will. Now faster. His voice dropped lower, intimate and commanding at once. Don't think, just react. She thrust, and he caught her wrist mid-strike, spinning her around so fast she gasped. Suddenly they were face to face, the blade between them, her pulse hammering in her throat. Your enemy won't wait for you to be ready, Do-yoon said softly. Neither will I. He released her wrist, and Angela realized she was still holding the knife, pointed at his chest. One push. That's all it would take. Do it, he challenged. If you really want to leave, if you really think you can save your brother alone, put the blade in me and walk out. I won't stop you. They stood frozen, the knife between them like a terrible choice made physical. Angela's hand shook. Then she lowered the blade. Do-yoon's smile was slow, triumphant, devastating. That's what I thought. He took the knife from her nerveless fingers and set it aside. Your brother will be fine. I'll have him extracted before dawn. But you, he cupped her face, his thumb tracing her lower lip. You stay here, with me, where you belong. I hate you, she whispered. No. His forehead pressed against hers. You hate that you don't. Julian was returned unharmed 6 hours later, delivered to a safe house with no memory of who'd rescued him. Do-yoon's men had been surgical in and out before Derek even knew his leverage had vanished, but the message was clear. Derek was desperate, sloppy, running out of moves. That's when Do-yoon proposed the trap. A charity gala, he said over breakfast 3 days later, as casual as if he were suggesting a movie. The Riverside Foundation's annual benefit. Black tie, cameras everywhere, the city's elite. You'll perform. Angela's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. I haven't played in public in 2 years. I know. His eyes held that familiar intensity, the look that said he'd already decided and was simply allowing her to catch up, which makes your return even more newsworthy. Every media outlet will cover it. Every social platform will stream it, including the ones Derek monitors obsessively. You want to use me as bait. Not a question. I want to use you as a queen making her first public appearance. He leaned back in his chair, immaculate as always in a slate-gray suit that probably cost more than her childhood home. Derek can't touch you in a room full of witnesses and cameras, but he won't be able to stay away either. His ego won't allow it. He needs to see you, to remind himself you're his property that got away. And then what? Then we end this. Simple. Final. Terrifying. The gala was in 4 days. Do-yoon gave her access to the music room without restriction, and Angela spent every waking hour relearning how to make her injured arm cooperate. The brace had come off, but the muscles were weak, the tendons still healing. Every note was a negotiation between will and limitation. Do-yoon watched her practice. He never interrupted, just sat in the corner with his laptop, conducting his empire while she fought with her cello. Sometimes she'd catch him staring, his expression unreadable, and the air would thicken with unspoken words. On the night before the gala, he came to her room with a garment bag. Tomorrow you'll need armor, he said, laying it on the bed. Open it. The gown inside stole her breath. Deep crimson, not bright red, but something darker, richer, the color of wine or dried roses or blood in low light. The fabric was liquid silk that caught the light like water, with a neckline that would bare her shoulders and a slit that would reveal leg with every step. It was a weapon disguised as clothing. It's perfect, she whispered. I know. He produced a jewelry box, small and black. One more thing. The necklace inside was deceptively simple, a thin platinum chain with a single red stone that matched the dress exactly. Beautiful, elegant, innocent. GPS tracker in the clasp, Do-yoon explained, lifting it from the box. Microphone in the stone. I'll hear everything, see everything through the venue's cameras. If Derek gets within 10 feet of you, I'll know. He moved behind her, and Angela's pulse kicked as his fingers brushed her neck, fastening the chain. His breath was warm against her skin, his presence overwhelming in the intimate space. You'll be magnificent tomorrow, he murmured. Everyone will see what I've known for 5 years. That you're not a victim, you're a force of nature. Angela turned to face him, and the intensity in his eyes made her dizzy. What if I freeze? What if I see him and I can't? You won't freeze. His hands framed her face with devastating gentleness. Because you're not the woman who sent that text anymore. You're the woman who held a blade to my chest and chose to lower it. You're the woman who plays music like she's conjuring fire. You're mine, Angela, and what's mine doesn't break. The kiss was inevitable. Slower this time, deeper, his hands sliding into her hair while hers fisted in his shirt. When he pulled away, they were both breathing hard. Tomorrow, he said, his voice rough. You perform. You remind the world who you are, and then we finish this. The gala was exactly as promised, excessive, elegant, swarming with the kind of people who wore their wealth like a second skin. Angela arrived in Do-yoon's car, the red dress clinging to her curves, her hair styled in an updo that showed off the necklace. Cameras flashed as Do-yoon helped her out, his hand possessive at the small of her back. "Smile," he murmured. "Show them you're untouchable." She did, and the cameras loved it. Backstage was controlled chaos, musicians warming up, coordinators speaking urgently into headsets, the energy electric and anxious. Angela's hands shook as she rosined her bow, but it wasn't stage fright, it was anticipation. Her phone buzzed. A text from Do-yoon, who'd taken his seat in the audience. "He's here. Back right corner. Security uniform. I have eyes on him." Angela's blood turned cold. She looked toward the stage entrance, could see the audience through the gap in the curtains. Hundreds of people in formal wear, champagne glasses catching light, the murmur of conversation like distant waves. And there, exactly where Do-yoon said, stood Derek. He'd somehow acquired a security uniform, probably through his brother's connections, and positioned himself where he could watch the stage. Even from this distance, she could see his smile. Confident, possessive, the smile of a man who thought he'd already won. He thought she was still his. Still the terrified woman who'd hidden in a bathroom while he broke down the door. He hadn't accounted for what 3 weeks in a glass tower with a monster had done to her. The stage manager touched her shoulder. "You're on in 2 minutes, Miss Grayson." Angela stood, cello in hand, and felt the weight of the necklace against her collarbone. Do-yoon was listening, watching, ready. "I'm ready," she said. She walked onto that stage like she was walking into battle. The lights were blinding, the audience a dark sea of faces. But she found her chair, positioned her cello, and looked up. Derek was still smiling. The conductor raised his baton. Angela closed her eyes, placed her bow against the strings, and began to play. The music that poured out wasn't the delicate, controlled performance she'd planned. It was fire and fury, grief and rage, every emotion she'd buried for 2 years channeled through horsehair and wood. She played like she was exorcising demons, like the cello was a weapon and the notes were bullets. The audience was transfixed. Derek stopped smiling, and Angela realized, with crystalline clarity, that she wasn't the prey anymore. She was the trap, and it was already closing. The applause was thunder. Angela lowered her bow, chest heaving, sweat dampening the hollow of her throat despite the air conditioning. The audience rose as one, a standing ovation that shook the chandeliers. But she wasn't looking at them. Her eyes found Derek in the back corner, and the fury on his face was its own kind of victory. She'd done it. Performed in front of hundreds, broadcasted to thousands, and reclaimed the thing he'd tried to take from her. The stage manager ushered her off as the next performer took position. Angela's hands were shaking, adrenaline, triumph, terror braided together as she navigated the maze of backstage corridors toward her dressing room. The necklace felt warm against her skin, Do-yoon's constant presence even when he wasn't visible. She almost made it. Angela. The voice froze her blood. She spun, and Derek was there, having somehow bypassed security, the uniform giving him access he shouldn't have had. He looked different, thinner, eyes wild, the veneer of control completely stripped away. "You really thought you could run from me?" He moved closer, and Angela's training kicked in. She stepped back, keeping distance, assessing exits. "Thought you could embarrass me in front of the entire city. I didn't think about you at all." Her voice was steady, despite the fear clawing up her spine. "That performance wasn't for you. It was for me. Lying whore." The words were venom. He pulled something from his pocket, a small plastic bag filled with white powder. "You're going to come with me quietly. We're going to walk out of here, and I'm going to arrest you for possession. My brother's already prepared the paperwork." Angela's heart slammed against her ribs. "That's not mine. Everyone will know. Everyone will know you're a junkie who ran away with a criminal to fuel your habit." He moved fast, grabbing her injured arm. The pain was sharp but manageable, nowhere near what it had been. "Do-yoon's going down too. Kidnapping, trafficking, corruption. I've been building the case for weeks." He was insane, completely detached from reality. And in that security uniform, with his badge and his brother's protection, he might actually pull it off. "Derek, please." She let her voice break, let herself sound small and scared. The woman he expected her to be. Too late for begging. He shoved the bag into her clutch, his grip on her arm tightening. "Now move, or I'll drag you out of here." Angela moved, but not the direction he expected. She spun into him instead of away, using his own grip as leverage, and brought her knee up hard between his legs. Derek's breath left him in a shocked wheeze, his hold loosening just enough. She grabbed the mic stand from the nearby props table, heavy, metal, perfect, and swung it at his throat. The impact was solid, satisfying. Derek choked, staggering back, his face going purple. Angela didn't stop, couldn't stop. 3 weeks of fear and fury and helpless rage poured out in controlled violence. She struck again, this time his wrist, the one holding her, and something in it gave with a crack that echoed Do-yoon's own justice. Derek dropped to his knees, gasping, You can't. I already did. Angela's voice was cold, foreign to her own ears. She reached into her dress, the slit that had seemed purely aesthetic, actually concealed a sheath and pulled out the blade Do-yoon had trained her with. Small, deadly, perfectly balanced. She pressed it against Derek's throat, right where Do-yoon had taught her. Quick, decisive, no hesitation. Give me one reason, she whispered, why I shouldn't end this right now. Derek's eyes went wide with genuine terror. You won't. You're not a killer. You're changed. The blade pressed harder, drawing a thin line of red. You made sure of that. Angela, Do-yoon's voice cut through her rage like a blade of its own. She looked up to find him standing in the corridor entrance, but he wasn't alone. Behind him stood Police Commissioner Martinez, 2 FBI agents she recognized from the news, and most devastating of all 3 camera crews with their equipment already rolling. Step back, Do-yoon said softly. Let them see what he tried to do. Angela looked down at Derek, then at the cameras now broadcasting everything, the bag of powder that had fallen from her clutch. Derek in his stolen security uniform, on his knees, her blade at his throat. She stepped back. Derek tried to stand, tried to run, but Do-yoon moved with that terrible speed and grace, planting a hand on his shoulder that drove him back down. Not violent, just absolutely, undeniably final. Derek Grayson. Commissioner Martinez stepped forward, handcuffs already out. You're under arrest for assault, kidnapping, evidence tampering, and about 15 other charges we're still tallying. This is insane, Derek's voice cracked. She's the criminal. She's with him. He gestured wildly at Do-yoon. He's a monster. Everyone knows. Everyone knows, Do-yoon interrupted quietly, that you broke your wife's arm, that you used your position as an officer to cover it up, that you kidnapped her brother, that you just attempted to frame her for drug possession, using evidence you planted. He leaned down, his voice dropping to something only Derek could hear. And everyone's watching. Derek's face went gray as he realized what had happened. The microphone in Angela's necklace. The cameras positioned perfectly. This entire confrontation had been broadcast live to the gala screens, recorded for every news outlet in the city. He'd been set up. Perfectly, ruthlessly, completely. The FBI agents moved in, hauling Derek to his feet. As they led him away, Do-yoon stepped close enough to whisper something in Derek's ear that made what little color remained drain from his face. Angela didn't need to hear the words. She understood their meaning in the way Derek's legs nearly gave out, in the way his eyes went wide with the knowledge of what waited for him. Do-yoon had promised he wouldn't make it to the precinct, and Lee Do-yoon never broke his promises. The cameras stopped rolling. The FBI agents disappeared with their prize. Commissioner Martinez shook Do-yoon's hand with the familiarity of men who'd done business before. And Angela stood there in her blood-red dress, a blade still in her hand, and realized she'd just crossed a line there was no coming back from. Do-yoon turned to her, and the pride in his eyes was devastating. Beautiful, he said simply. He meant the performance, the trap, the way she'd fought back. He meant all of it. Is it over? Her voice sounded small in the sudden quiet. Almost. He took the blade from her hand, wiped it clean on his handkerchief, and tucked it away. There's one more thing you need to do. What? Come back on stage. He offered his hand. Take your second bow. Show them you're not a victim anymore. Angela looked at his outstretched hand, scarred, tattooed, deadly, and somehow the safest thing she'd ever known. She took it. The second bow was shorter. Angela walked onto that stage with Do-yoon's hand at the small of her back, and when the audience saw them together, the applause shifted into something else. Recognition. Understanding. The unspoken acknowledgement that they'd all witnessed something that changed the narrative. She wasn't the victim who'd escaped. She was the queen who'd executed justice. But as soon as they left the venue, as Do-yoon's car pulled away from the flashing cameras and shouted questions, Angela started shaking. It began in her hands, then spread through her entire body, violent tremors she couldn't control. I almost killed him. Her voice sounded foreign, hollow. I had the blade at his throat, and I wanted to. God, Do-yoon, I wanted to. I know. He pulled her against him, and she went, burying her face in his shoulder while the city lights blurred past the tinted windows. But you didn't. You chose control. That's what separates us from men like him. Is he really gone? She pulled back enough to see his face. Tell me the truth. Du-Yoon's expression was answer enough. That careful emptiness, the one he wore when discussing business. Derek Grayson was involved in a transport accident approximately 43 minutes ago. The van carrying him to county jail was struck by a vehicle that fled the scene. There were no survivors among the prisoners. Angela should have felt horror, should have felt guilt or remorse or some shred of humanity at the news of a man's death. Instead, all she felt was a crushing, liberating wave of relief so powerful it made her lightheaded. Good, she whispered. Du-Yoon's eyes darkened with something that looked like satisfaction, pride, possession. Good, he echoed. They rode the rest of the way in silence, his arms around her, her face pressed against his chest, where she could hear his heartbeat steady, unhurried, the rhythm of a man who'd orchestrated death and felt nothing but certainty. The penthouse was dark when they arrived, rain beginning to streak the massive windows. Angela moved through it like a ghost, still wearing the crimson dress, the necklace Do-Yoon had given her warm against her skin. She should have been exhausted, should have collapsed into bed and slept for days. Instead, she found herself drawn to the music room. The cello waited where she'd left it that morning a lifetime ago, it seemed now. Angela picked it up, carried it to the main living area, and stepped onto the balcony. Rain immediately soaked through her dress, plastering it to her skin, but she didn't care. She needed to play. Du-Yoon found her there minutes later, the bow already moving across strings, rain and music blending into something primal. He didn't tell her to come inside. Didn't worry about the instrument getting wet. He simply stood in the doorway, watching as she poured everything into the performance. This wasn't the controlled, perfect execution she'd given the gala audience. This was raw, wild. The sound of a woman who'd walked through fire and came out forged into something harder, sharper, more dangerous than before. When the last note faded into the sound of rain, Angela lowered the bow and found Do-Yoon watching her with an intensity that made breathing difficult. That, he said quietly, is who you really are. He crossed the balcony, rain immediately soaking through his expensive suit like he didn't notice, didn't care about anything except reaching her. His hands framed her face, rainwater streaming between them. And Angela had never felt more alive. I need you to understand something, Du-Yoon said, his voice barely audible over the storm. This isn't temporary. This isn't me protecting you until the danger passes. This is forever. Forever is a long time for a man like you. Her hands came up to grip his wrists, feeling his pulse strong and steady beneath her fingers. Then it's fortunate, he murmured, that I'm a patient man. He released her face only to reach into his jacket pocket, producing a small box that somehow remained dry despite the rain. I'm not asking you to marry me because you need protection. I'm asking because I've wanted you since the moment I saw you play 5 years ago, and having you in my life these past weeks has only confirmed what I already knew. He opened the box. The ring inside was stunning, a black diamond surrounded by smaller red stones. Set in platinum. Dark, beautiful, absolutely perfect. I'm not offering you safety, Angela. I'm offering you vengeance and devotion, empire and equality, a life where you never have to be afraid again, because everyone who even thinks about hurting you will have to go through me first. His eyes held hers, unflinching. I'm offering you everything I am, monster, king, killer, yours. All of it. Angela looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. The man who'd broken into her life and rearranged every piece, who'd taught her to fight back, who'd orchestrated Derek's death with the same casual efficiency he brought to everything else. The man who'd saved her not because she needed saving, but because he'd wanted her for years, and finally had an excuse to take what he'd been denied. It should have terrified her. It didn't. Yes. The word came out certain, powerful, irrevocable. Du-Yoon's smile was devastating. He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, because of course he'd known her size, and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like rain and victory and dark promises that would take a lifetime to fulfill. They went inside eventually, dripping water across expensive floors, leaving a trail of wet clothes toward the bedroom. The cello remained on the balcony, rain streaming down its curves, a silent witness to the moment Angela Grayson chose to stop running and start ruling. Morning came with gray light and the buzz of Do-Yoon's phone. He answered it still in bed, Angela curled against his side, her head on his chest, the black diamond catching the dim light. Turn on the news, his associate said. Channel 7. Do-Yoon reached for the remote, and they watched as the morning anchor delivered the story with appropriate gravity. Transport accident. Tragic loss of life. Derek Grayson among the casualties. along with 2 other prisoners and the driver. Investigation pending, but early reports suggested mechanical failure. No mention of foul play, no suspicion, just another unfortunate accident in a city full of them. Angela reached over and turned off the TV. Any regrets? Duyun asked quietly. She looked at him, this beautiful, terrifying man who'd destroyed her husband to claim her, and felt nothing but certainty. None. Good. He pulled her closer, his lips against her temple. Because you're mine now, Angela. Completely. Irrevocably. Forever. I know. She tilted her face up to kiss him, slow and deep and full of dark promises. And you're mine. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city spread below them, washed clean, full of new possibilities. And in a penthouse high above it all, a queen learned to love her monster. If you made it this far, you know this isn't your average love story. This is what happens when romance collides with darkness, when salvation comes wrapped in danger, when the man who saves you is the most dangerous thing you've ever encountered. Hit that like if Duyun's brand of devotion made your heart race. Subscribe because you're clearly addicted to the ruthless kind of love. And drop a comment telling me whose story you want next, because in this world, every monster deserves their muse, and every queen deserves her throne. Welcome to Ruthless Romance Tales, where happy endings come with a body count.